Welcome to the Rise to Shine podcast with Noelle Kustas, where we ignite the spark to discover your favorite self. It is time to get real, ladies. Hello. Welcome back to the Rise to Shine podcast. I'm your host, Noelle Kustas, and I am so excited for today's episode. Today's guest, believe it or not, is someone I connected with when I was at a networking event in Boise, of all places. And I got to meet Jessica, and within minutes, I knew that I needed to know her. Her style, her vibe, her presence, well, it is all very magnetic. And since then, we've stayed in touch in the background. And the more I have learned about her, the more I've admired just her bold, beautiful way that she moves through life. And Jessica, a little bit about her, is a wife. She's also an ex-wife. She's a mom and a stepmom. We have that in common. And she is a powerhouse decision maker. She's built a life and a movement around helping women ditch the overthinking. And I love that. Ditching the people pleasing and the need to explain themselves. Through her signature BBB decision making formula, she's guiding others to lead boldly and live in alignment with who they were truly created to be. Welcome, Jessica. So fun to have you today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to be able to connect again, and be able to chat together.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, like I said, we have so much in common, and then we have so much that's not in common that I just love about your story. And like I said, I really feel like since I have met you, and then just in the couple of years that I've gotten to follow along, I have just been so impressed by the way you lead and by the way you
Mm.
speak your truth. And I feel like it is so important for women to have that permission to do that. And I feel like that's exactly what you do. So, for all the women out there that have not met you yet, I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself before we really dive into all the goodness and just about your journey that's led you here today.
Sounds great. And to preface this, it's interesting because I do a lot of podcast interviews and things like this. And whenever people say nice things about me at the beginning of these, as a woman, we're so conditioned to not let that come in. And I get teary every time. So thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. And I'm getting better at just letting them come and think, wow, that's amazing.
I get
Because
that.
we tend to deflect. So thank
Yeah,
you.
you're
Always
so welcome.
appreciated. Yes. So my story really began, I always say, when I met my ex-husband. People always, that's when things got interesting in my life. I grew up in a very conservative Christian religion, was a very straight edge individual, except that I never looked that way. So there was a lot of people being like, oh, well, Jessica's this one way, like me getting viewed as a certain type of way. I was always viewed as, somebody who is a druggie or doing drinking on the weekends and partying. And I never was. I was very straight edge, very by the book, but I didn't look it. I always liked to have fun with who I was and all those things. So there was all of that leading up to when I met my husband, my ex-husband, Steve. And he was raised in the same religion, and he wanted that. He wanted somebody that was also in the religion, but that looked different. And even though he couldn't vocalize that, that was really the thing that I realized that connected us, is neither of us really fit, even though we were very much trying to fit. So we met, we fell in love. It was very much a quick, we met one day and we were together the next day, and every day after that we could be. And we met in February, we were married in December. So it was a very quick romance.
Right.
And we really enjoyed each other and all of these things. And people talk about that first idyllic year of marriage, or no, that it's the hardest year of marriage. And I'm like, no, we had this idyllic first year of marriage. It was easy to mesh our lives together. And I say that, and then I always think, okay, but 6 months into our marriage, I found a bunch of pornography on our computer one day. And I remember when, back in the day, pop-ups would just pop up on your computer and you'd be like, okay, what's going on? Like if you had clicked a link or something, it could create all these pop-ups that would show up. And I got on the computer and that's how I found all of this pornography, was all of these pop-ups. Now, in our religion, first and foremost, pornography was like shameful.
Right.
And I already knew Steve looked at pornography, but what I wasn't prepared for was there was no women in these videos, in these pictures. And I was like, okay, hold up, we have something different going on here. There's no women, this is all men. And I thought, I'm pretty sure my husband's gay. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he is gay. People are into what they're into, but for me there was like this inner knowing that I'm pretty sure my husband is gay. And I
Right.
talked to him that night, and he was like, no, I'm not gay. I just didn't want to disrespect women. And he was in extreme denial. He had very much convinced himself that that was his truth. And he later told me, he's like, that night when we talked about that was the first time I had let myself even think the words, I am gay, like have it
Wow.
be a consideration in his head. I was like, okay, so we both kind of just tucked this in the background and continue forward in our marriage. A couple years later, he's in counseling, and the counselor's like, yeah, these things you're dealing with are an issue, but the real issue is that you're gay. And so until
Mhm.
you deal with this and kind of address and accept this part of you, you're going to struggle with all these other things. And at that point, he came out to me and we decided to continue forward. Like it just felt right for both of us. And people hear that and they were like, you guys are nuts. And I get it. It sounds crazy, but it was what was best for both of us. So we continued forward. We brought a beautiful little girl into our lives and we ended up getting divorced about 7 years into our marriage. Steve had an affair. We tried to work through the affair and it was just too much of a mess at that point. And I was just like, you are ready. Like, go be your true self. I will go be my true self. As long as we can come together and figure out how to raise this little girl together, we are fine. Like, we can figure this out. And I say that like there was a lot of emotion in that. There was
Yeah.
it's everything that happens when somebody has an affair or goes outside of the boundaries of what you have established in your marriage. All of those feelings and emotions came with that. And
Right.
also a deep sense of like shame on Steve's part and also figuring out who he is now and all of the things. So we went through that whole process. But we did it with the intention of being able to stay close enough that our daughter, who is now 15, she was 2 at the time we got divorced, would
Mhm.
be able to have parents that she didn't have to worry about if they were in the same room. And also that our partners, whoever we invited in the long term, that we could all be together. And it was never about us. It was always about Penny. Like we got to be
Mm.
there for Penny in whatever way she wanted us to be so that she didn't have to worry about her parents. That was like my intention in our divorce, besides healing myself and all of those things, which I knew I had to do for that to happen.
Right.
And so we continued with that. I ended up getting married a year and a half later, which is also super nuts. After dating him for 8 weeks, I didn't know him for longer than that and worked through all of the mess that comes with second marriages. I thought, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm married to a straight man now. Like, this is great. And it was a complete disaster for the first few years to the extent that I left at one point and worked through all of that.
Mm.
So here we are. We're coming up on our 13 or 12-year wedding anniversary. And during all of this process, Steve and I and Matt's my current husband, Steven's my ex-husband,
Mhm.
would like share parts of our story with people and would realize that this really resonated. We hear so much of like through divorce and just in life in general of so much of the negative things that happens in families that we don't get to see when people actually come together to make it work, to figure out how to love and support each other along the way. And you ask my current husband right now and he will say like, I love Steve. I love him kind of like a brother at this point. I view Steve as like that deep of a love that I love him
Right.
that deeply. We do holidays together. We do Christmases, like birthdays together, including like Steve's birthday, which happens to be this week. And all of these things so that we can create a good situation for ourselves and for our daughter. Which has led me to now we share our story in a podcast. That's where I was going with that. Like we need more of that. So
Yeah.
Steve and I and Matt came together and started a podcast sharing our story And we always say it was about love, marriage, divorce, coming out, like all of the things, so that people felt less alone in their story. And it's interesting because we don't have to have lived, like you and I were saying, the exact same lives. We might have some things that are similar to be able
Right.
to resonate with all of those things that happened.
Yeah.
And so we put that out there. And then I started coaching women along the way. And I was coaching women who had had a partner come out. And then I was coaching women who had experienced divorce or betrayal. And now I coach women in helping them figure out how to make decisions for themselves that are in alignment. Because that is the one
So
thing
good.
that stayed true for me through all of this is
Yeah.
being able to make decisions that were in alignment with who I was and what I needed and all of that along the way so that I didn't lose myself in the process. So that's like the very short version of my story and how I've gotten to where I am today.
Yeah.
It's been a up and down journey. But I always tell people if you want like the whole story and the details from both sides of it, go listen to our podcast. It's called Husband in Law. We don't release episodes anymore, but it is all there. Start with episode 1.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and gosh, so much to unpack, I know. And I'm sure for women listening, they're like, whoa, did she just say all of that? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Because I remember when we had met and you had given me not even all of that story, but at the time you were doing your podcast and you were
Hmm.
coaching women that their spouses had come out. And I just remember being like, whoa, wow, like what a story. Because it's just, you think it's not something you hear very often.
Yeah.
But what was so intriguing to me is that I tuned in to some of your, episodes and I was like, wow, there's way more people out there dealing with these kinds of things that keep so hidden. And what a relief for a space for women to feel seen and heard and to have a place that they can even be coached. I always say, I mean, yes, there's all the certifications, there's all the things, that we have as coaches and, or some don't have, but I'm
Yeah.
like, it's the experiences too
Hmm.
that bring so much into your space. And one of the things I am so curious about, because I am sure our listeners are going to have tons of questions, and I want to kind of we'll go through it gradually. But one of the things that I was really curious about is how has your experience of rewinding back to that time and even to where you are now, how has that influenced your views on your self-worth, on love? What does that look like for you?
It's interesting, like my views of self-worth for myself
Hmm.
have grown drastically of recognizing the strength that I have carried through all of this and also being able to recognize in the moment that this is I am strong, and strong doesn't always mean I am pushing through or I am living into what's expected of me. Strong means doing what is best for me. Strong means breaking
So
down
good.
and being like, I can't do this today. I remember there were plenty of times showing up at my parents' house, and I had a 2 year old when I'm going through a divorce and being like, here is my daughter. Please take
Yeah,
her for the day. I am a mess. Like,
right.
and leaving. And so strength looks like that. Strength is being able to state what it is we need and being curious enough and getting uncomfortable enough to figure that out. So for me,
Mhm.
my worth was strengthened of all of, realizing this isn't about me and being able to detach from that because we internalize so much of what our partners do is like, oh, this is all about me. How do I fix it? How do I come to terms with that? And me being very much like, this has nothing to do with me. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but I work with a lot of women who have had gay partners and we don't think that way. Just kind of like if there's betrayal, we think it's all about us. Like they did this because I wasn't enough and we have to prove ourselves.
Right.
And so being able to release that need to prove my worth, and that was tested really hard when I married my second husband because there was a desire to prove. I didn't want to fail again. I didn't want my marriage to fall apart. And so that was when it was the hardest to accept my worth and be able to live into it without needing to prove it. Second part of that question, I can't remember what you said.
Oh, and just on your views on love even.
Okay, yes. Views on love. This is the other thing that I mean, my whole goal in this life and in leadership and being somebody who's willing to be seen is to help people rethink love, because love is completely expansive. I mean, I think about if you have more than one child, more than one child. I do not. I just have the one. But I know how this works of like you love them just as much. Like if you have another one, the love expands. We think that like how could I love someone or something as much as this first kid, as much as this one being? And then we have another and it's like, whoa, I get to love more deeply. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that has really hit home to me is when I show up in love, it gets to expand. So I love Steve deeply. And people online, of course, like I get so much crazy, like so much craziness in my comments, which is totally fine. But people can't grasp that. People
Right.
can't understand that love expands. They'll be like, oh, your poor husband, you're still in love with your ex. Oh, your poor like ex, like all of these things. And I'm like, this is because we can't perceive how big love gets to be. And in
Mhm.
that, when we can understand how to love ourselves, it on a deep level, it expands that love as well. And Matt, my current husband, thankfully can be like, I can see and understand this. Like, I understand your love and appreciation for Steve, and also know that doesn't like take anything away from our relationship and the love that we feel for each other. It's completely
Mm.
different type of love. I have a quote on my office wall. This is my home office, my other office, that says there are all types of love in this world, but never the same love twice. And I believe that's
Mm.
Fitzgerald, F. Scott Fitzgerald. And that is something that I just truly believe. Like, there are so many different types of love in this world that
Mhm.
we can experience, that we get to experience when we allow ourselves to, that it's just never the same. And so we can't understand other people's love. Like, people aren't going to understand how I love my ex-husband, and they don't have to. The idea is that we understand that love gets to be expansive and we get to feel it in so many different ways.
And this is exactly what it was that this energy about you that I was so drawn to, because that is where I felt, believe it or not. I mean, yes, there were other things I could relate with you on, but this
Mm-hmm.
was something that I feel like, ironically, because I don't understand it,
Yeah.
that people have a hard time understanding
Mm-hmm.
is this expansive love and the different types of love, because that is who I am. And I am with you. So I've also gone through a divorce. I have two children from my previous husband, and we were together for almost 20 years, and
Mm.
I am now remarried and just you know so happy and just on in a completely different relationship. And there were a lot of really horrible things that happened in
Yeah.
my first marriage, but I still love him, and I have a love for him that I always want. Like, my heart's desire is for him to always feel loved
Mm.
by his people, to know that, he does have people out there that love him, and that his, well-being is, something that's super important to me. And same thing, people are shocked that
Yeah.
I feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
and because of our past and what had happened. But there's something about it, and I think that's what I admire so much about your relationship with your ex, and even his loves and his life, and then having, I mean, thank goodness, we are both married to people that understand that. And
Yep.
because again, I not everybody does. And I guess to be in our world, you would have to understand it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that's who we
Yep.
are, and that is how we are going to carry on our lives. And they know that. And but I really commend you for it, because not only have you shown that love, but you've also put out into the world this, gosh, I'm trying to look for think of the words that I'm trying to say, is that you've put out into the world that it's okay. and that you can still, we don't have to live with all of this hate, even if we don't agree. I mean, and this goes
Yep.
on so many levels, but
Mhm.
I just feel like, gosh, if we could be grounded in this and understand, and I think you're right. I think it is a self-love, which it's hard. That's even hard for me to understand because sometimes I go, gosh, I feel like I've been so hard on myself, but yet I
Mhm.
know that everyone is worth having that. And I don't know, I just really admire you for what you have done and the relationship that you've built, and that your child gets to experience that, gets to live in a family that comes together and is able to function in this space, because
Yeah.
even though it might be hard and tricky sometimes, and it's not always, perfectly clean, it can be messy for sure, but that she's going to grow up knowing that this is what her mom and her dad and her stepdad have built a life upon, which I just think is huge. It's just
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and ideally, what I hope for her is that she understands no matter what her life looks like, what she chooses for her life to be,
Mm,
is we are here supporting that and kind of breaking down these boxes of what her life needs to be. Because as humans, we want it
right.
to fit in a box, we want it to look a certain way. And
Yeah.
that's why it's hard to see love outside of that box,
Hmm.
outside of what we know, is because there's so many ways it can look. And when we start breaking down the box, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't comprehend this. And our human
Right.
brains are like freaking out, trying to keep us safe. No,
Totally.
stay in the box. This
Totally.
is what you've seen, stay there. And so
Yeah.
that's part of my one of my biggest hopes for her. I used to say, like, I wanted Steve and I to be in the room together with whoever else was in our lives at that time when she gets married and when she has a kid and when she graduates. And now I'm like, I don't even know what those events look like in her life. And I don't want her to
Mhm.
think that it has to look any certain way or whatever, but that she gets to decide what those important moments are. And whatever
Yeah.
they are, we're there. And this comes back to a lot of like what you were talking about and my ideal life for Penny. Um, and there isn't an ideal life, it's whatever she creates. But
Right.
is this should that we get ourselves stuck in? Is there
Mm.
so much of the should of what our life should look like that then we can't pull ourselves out to think any differently?
Mhm.
We should, the path's there for so many of us, whether we've been in religion or not. There's this idea of like, okay, I go to school, I graduate, I go to college, I get married, I have children, and in that I marry a like person of the other gender. Like all of these things are just kind of
Right.
ingrained in our lives of this is how it's supposed to look, this is how my relationships should look. And if I'm
Mhm.
going to get divorced, if my husband has an affair, then I should be pissed and angry and never forgive that. And I'm like, what a sad way to live. For
Right.
like that
Right.
isn't serving you, that isn't going to make you happy. Do you want boundaries? 100%. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean you have to carry anger and resentment your whole life, or you don't have to stay in a marriage that isn't serving you just because it's what you thought was right for you 20 years ago. Like all of these
Yes.
things, we get so stuck in the should. And I am just like, we are leaving that should behind and making the decisions that feel best for us. No right or wrong in that, no good or bad, just our next best decision. And
Yeah.
that's going to lead us where we need to be.
Right. And so, I mean, going into, and I definitely want to talk about this, but I'm just so curious. What is your advice for someone who knows what they want, but fears how other people will perceive their decision or who they are?
Yeah. So oftentimes with my clients, what I will do is I'm like, you need to embark on either a should challenge or a trust your gut challenge. They're
Hmm.
similar but different. So
Okay.
one of them with the should challenge is I am going to find one thing a day where I'm shoulding on myself. It could be I should do this workout. I should eat this food. I should style my hair this way because that's what my partner likes or whatever. I should wear this outfit because that's what I've been told is appropriate or that's what is whatever, then I look the best for other people. So
Yeah.
identifying those shoulds, and I tell people identify one a day and realize first and foremost how much you're shooting on yourself, of like living into this idea of what it is, what's expected of me, of what life should look like. And then I often tell them, now we're going to graduate to a trust your gut challenge. And this is where we take one thing a day and we act on it. So if we are shooting on ourselves about what we should wear, then we are going to go back and we're going to be like, what do I want to wear today? What is actually going to feel good in my body? What is going to like make me feel, honestly, what it does when you do this
Mhm.
is then you don't even think about yourself anymore. You're not
Yeah.
uncomfortable in your clothes. You're not thinking about what they're doing because it's something you want to wear. And so you actually get to think about other people more in the long run. But for now, we're just coming down to trusting our gut in one way every day. Now, what this does is it builds a trust and confidence with ourselves. So over
I love
time, we realize, oh, I did this and nothing happened. Nothing horrible happened. Maybe
Mhm.
that person thought something about my outfit, but I don't care because I felt good. And honestly, you stop thinking about it. I don't think about what other people think about my hair or what I wear or any of these things. Like it's not something that crosses my mind because I've been doing this for so long. I don't care.
Yeah.
Now, maybe some bigger things, I still have to work through those issues, but it gives us a way to start working through those and to start realizing it's not the end of the world when I do what is best for me,
Yeah.
even in the little things, especially in the little things, because those prepare us from making those big decisions of like, oh my gosh, I know my parents are going to lose it when I tell them this is actually something that happened, that I tell them I am dating my gay ex-husband again. So we are divorced and I dated my ex-husband again after that divorce. My parents are going to die, and I'm sure they did. I am sure of it. And
Hmm.
also, I knew it was what was best for me at the time. And so it just didn't matter. Like, does
Right.
it sound insane? 100%. But it doesn't matter what anybody else thought because I knew that's what Steve and I needed at the time.
Yeah.
And so, if we can start instilling that trust back with ourselves and that connection back to ourselves on small things on a daily basis, it allows us to release that people pleasing. It starts helping us feel safe in our own body. It like goes into that nervous system regulation and all of those things so that we feel safe to then take action on bigger things. Still scary, still like, I don't know if this is going to go my way, but we don't have other people's voices in the back of our head constantly telling us like, oh, but you should do this. Oh, but that's dumb. Whatever. It can sound insane. I don't care. It's what I'm going to do because it's what's best for me.
Oh, that's so good because I just love the idea of trusting ourselves because that really, when I started doing the work several years ago, I realized that that was part of my issue is that I didn't trust
Mm.
myself because I didn't follow through with certain things or because I would say I was going to do one thing and I wouldn't do it. And it just became a pattern. And, I'm so, so curious about this because you radiate this unapologetic energy. I have to say, you definitely do. And I know that at the beginning, when you talked about your story, you said, even when you were in this very conservative church and, in this religion, you were always different. You always stood out. You
Mhm.
always dressed a little bit different, maybe had an edge to you. And so there's definitely a boldness with you. Has that always been there? Where do you think that that came from at a young age? Or do you just
Yeah.
have you always felt like you've been this way?
I think that this is one of the gifts I was given in life, that this is
Hmm.
the way I was created, and that is one of the things that, again, like you're saying, like brings people to me because when we are safe being ourselves, it gives other people the permission to be themselves and to say, hey, I'm going to do this thing and it sounds crazy, but I think you'll understand. Or at least be like, yes, you go without judging and without all those things. Like that is a gift that I've been given. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't taken time to understand why I am this way and what actually allows me to live into this. I remember as a teenager very much struggling with the fact that I wanted to be different. Like I wanted to have weird hair and I wanted to dress. I always wore weird tights all the time. Like that was my thing. Like I don't know. They were weird and it was great. And part of me still does that. But there was just this knowing of like, this is okay. I remember kind of like going to God with it actually and just being like, hey, my intention isn't to be rebellious, but also I'm being told this isn't how I should look. This isn't how I should dress. And just coming to this place of realizing this isn't out of rebellion. This isn't out of any of those things. It's actually me trusting God to be who I was created to be. And
Oh, I
once
love
I embraced that I was that listening to our inner knowing is actually trusting universe, whoever, whatever you believe in, to guide you, then it's like, oh, I don't need to care what anybody else thinks because I know it's in me and I know it's guiding me towards my purpose on earth, my mission, my ability to love other people. Now, I want to touch on real quick this idea of trusting ourselves because so many of us as women don't know how to trust ourselves.
that.
And I go back to when we were kids. We are the first person we were taught not to trust. And I think this is really important for us to understand so that we can give ourselves grace in learning how to trust ourselves. We were taught not to trust ourselves at very young age when we were told it doesn't hurt that bad. You're okay. You shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't want that. You shouldn't dress that way. That looks weird. You're not going to be accepted. You should whatever. You need to do this and that to fit in. And it amplifies the older we get. And we disconnect farther and farther away from ourselves. And so it takes time and a lot of intention to then come back to trusting ourselves, but it is possible. And I have lost myself a few times along the way. Like nobody does this perfectly,
Right.
but also we can come back to ourselves. And also there are things we can do to regain that trust with ourselves. And that's the only thing we really need in life is trust of ourselves. People are like, I don't know how to trust again after betrayal, after my partner did this or that. And I'm like, you don't have to trust them. You have to learn to trust yourself again.
Yes. So good. So good. Say that louder.
Yeah.
Because I think that is so important that it's not about, like you said, the distrust of other people. It's trusting ourselves. And what a great point that, you know, again, these are the types of things that start to happen at an early age when we are
Yes.
children and the messages that we're given. And and that's probably why I love doing this podcast more than anything, and just speaking with women and coaching with women, because it has helped me so much as a parent. I mean, I had a great mom and she did the best that she could, and her mom did the best that
100%.
she could, and
Yep.
I'm doing the best that I can. But I also know, I look at my daughter and I see this person that she's becoming, and I always tell her, I go, man, she's 23. And I say, what you know and how you live out your life at age 23, it took me 45 years to figure that out.
Yes.
And it is so awesome to see. And she's always been, I kind of giggled when you said, and I always wear the, different tights. I go, oh my gosh, that was my kid. Like, she was the girl that she wore uniforms to school. And
Yeah.
I remember well, two things that they did not make as part of the uniform was socks. You could pretty much wear whatever socks you wanted. So of course was my daughter in all the
Yep.
rainbow socks, and there was fluffy balls on her socks and
Yep.
everything else you could imagine. And then she got into hats, and then it was like, oh, well, this is my way of showing my style. And again, it was that bite your tongue. I was a teacher at this school,
Yep.
so of course I'm going, okay, I gotta like make sure it's, within the space of like, I'm still a teacher, I have to respect the rules. However, she had a point. I'm like, that's not in the rules. And I wanted her to be able to express herself. And that was something I felt like I really wasn't able to do, and not purposely, but it was
Yeah.
taught to me to, like, you look weird, you don't want people to think
Yeah.
that, or you need to look like this. And I mean,
Yeah.
it was definitely how I was raised. And so and it was a learning experience for me, and now I see her as this adult, and just, gosh, I just go, man, girl, I love how you're able to live out this boldness more so
Yeah.
than what I was, and just feeling so much more comfortable in her skin. Even though, again, nothing's perfect, and there,
Oh, no.
there are still things, but that in that area, I'm like, whew, okay, this is good. This is good, you know? And so I do love that. But now going into some more of the work that you do, I know that we're talking about like how you work with your clients. I know that you created the BBB decision making formula.
Mhm.
So is that aligned with some of the things that you were sharing before, or is that a framework that you could walk us through and tell us about?
Yeah, it's 100% in alignment with what I was talking about before, and is a process that we can dive into. So
Okay.
there are three B's, obviously, that we go into. The first is be gentle. And I always tell people being gentle with ourselves is 60% of the decision-making process. And it is this basically unlearning or learning how to be gentle with ourselves, of releasing judgment, releasing those shoulds, really taking time to sort through all of those things so that we are not judging ourselves with everything that it is we want. I want to dress this way. Oh, but I shouldn't. Every time you say should, you are placing a judgment on something that you want to do. It's the
Mm,
easiest way to catch that judgment is just
good.
by hearing the word should. And you're like, dang it. You're going to hear it all the time now.
Okay, I'm
Um,
gonna note to self on that one. I
Oh,
love
it's
that.
gonna come up. But just being able to do that of releasing that judgment that we put on ourselves. And once we start getting in a pattern of being able to release that judgment, we get to move to the next step, which is being humble. And being humble doesn't mean we're a doormat. It doesn't mean we aren't proud of ourselves. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that we are releasing our ego. So we have to release the ego so that we can be wrong about how we thought life should look, how we thought we should live. And when we can release that ego, it opens up this world of there are so many different ways my life could look. And it doesn't mean anything about me. And I'm not responsible for other people's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about what I do. So this is kind of the step where we unlearn the people pleasing and we silence the noise of other people's opinions. We get clear about our values so that we can show up in those values. I mean, that was one of the things, like as a teenager, realizing I'm not bad. This is just important to me. Being myself and expressing myself is important to me. I always say boldness is one of my top values and has been. I can trace it my whole life. And so I can make decisions based on that. So we have the first part that's be gentle, learning how to be gentle with ourselves, releasing that judgment, being kind. 60% of the process. It's the hardest work. 30% of the process is this understanding of how we get to know ourselves again, creating that trust in ourselves, regaining those things. And so 10% of the process, this little part up here, is what we actually think about when we think of decision making, is taking the action. And
Mm,
so overcoming the fear and taking action and understanding this might not go the way that I had planned, and it doesn't matter. I just need the information. We like to overthink everything and go
gosh.
to our aunt and our cousin and our dad and whoever to get all the
Yeah.
information, and Google and Instagram and Pinterest, and gather all this information about what we should do. And it keeps us from taking action when really, if we took action, then we would have the clarity we need to go forward again and to go forward again. Now, if it doesn't go as planned, that is information you can use. That is where we are like, oh, okay, I need to shift this way. Like now I know for sure this wasn't the right path for me. That's okay. It doesn't
Right.
mean my intuition's off. It means that I needed to understand this and experience it so I can go this direction. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of the last step, is be bold, and is taking that action, being true to who we are. And I always preface this because I do, I had a shaved head for years. This is the most hair I've had in a long time. And like all of these things, like this doesn't mean you go shave your head. This doesn't mean you wear the same things I wear. Like I am not trying to turn anybody into me. My end goal and intention is to get you in tune with you. Now, I create a really safe space to do that, a very judgment-free zone to do that. And that is my goal, is that you get to hear and understand your own voice on a deep level, so you are taking action on that. So we got to be gentle, we got to be humble, and then we get to be bold.
Love that so much. And I can say firsthand, I mean, I like I said, I've been following you for 2 years and I know that everything that you put out there is exactly that. You clearly live by that. And again, just so much love for that because you truly are walking the walk. And I love too that you and I absolutely trust that you are letting and allowing other people to feel safe because there is
Yeah.
no judgment. It is just simply be who you are and have that safe space to come to for that. So, oh my gosh, so many things. But I want to ask you because I would love to know what is lighting you up right now, personally or professionally, that you are excited to share with the world, share with all of our listeners.
Yeah. So one thing first and foremost, as I'm sitting looking out my window, is summertime and sunshine. I forever am summer and sunshine. And just I know that like we think of winter as a season of rest, but I feel like summer is my season of rest. Well, and maybe every season of my life, because I believe women just do too much in general. And
Mhm.
so right now, like laying by the pool and just taking afternoons to relax, like that is something that lights me up. And also professionally, I am launching a book and I am so excited about it because it's talking about these principles and helping it get into the hands of so many more women that can then take these steps and work through them on their own or join me along the way. But they have a reference of, oh, I can go back to this chapter and read about being bold. I can go back here and read about being gentle and have things that help me work through this process of learning to trust myself again and those things that keep us from being able to trust ourselves. So those are things I'm excited about. Summer and my book launch. I am just really pumped about those.
I am so excited, Jessica. And I just want to say so much thank you for being here and sharing your truth so boldly and beautifully, of course, too. But I know every woman right now, I really feel this in my heart, is walking away with a deeper sense of just that clarity and permission to just be who she was created to be. And that's what I, was hoping for with having you here. It's exactly what you shared with us and I love it because you are really such a light. You're such a force. And I'm so grateful that our paths crossed that day in Boise of all places.
Yes.
And I really hope, I cannot wait for this book to come out. I really hope that this is just going to be the beginning of
Mm,
more conversations like this because I just think that it is such a reminder and it is my hope with this podcast that women will start to realize that we don't have to overthink and over explain or overcompensate
yes.
and that we can live boldly and we can live fully and be the person that we are meant to be. So I'm super excited. And Jessica, can you just tell us where everyone can find you and all of the things? We will have them in the show notes, but I'd love for you to just share with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So if you are interested, you can get on the wait list for the book at shoveyourshoulds.com /book waitlist. So shove your shoulds, that is the
Love it.
name, that is the title of the book, because we are going to shove those shoulds out of our lives. But you can find me on Instagram at Hey Jessica Frew. That is where I am by far the most active. Those are probably the two best places to go right now. And then if you want to go back and listen to our podcast, it is called Husband in Law. It is out there if you are looking for it.
Awesome. And you guys, to everyone listening, if today sparked something in you, please follow that. Make your next best decision. Be bold, be you. And as always, thank you so much, Jessica, and keep rising, keep shining, and know that your best day is right here waiting for you. Bye,
Thanks
friends.
for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me here today. Your presence means the world to me. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider leaving a rating and review, and don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Head to the show notes and let's connect. Rise to Shine Co. is ready to support you in coaching, collaboration, life tips, or even a coffee chat. Until next time, keep shining, my friends.